welcome to Are We the Only Ones? I'm Kathy, and today I'm going to talk about what it's like to lose Wi-Fi and how, I don't know, it's obviously a first world problem, and this is very extreme and dramatic, but I feel like a caveman. Like, I keep coming back to my phone and hitting all the apps out of like force of habit or something. My internet has been down since 2 a.m. this morning. It is Sunday, the day before Memorial Day. And tomorrow is my wedding anniversary. It's my 24th wedding anniversary. I didn't realize how much I relied on going online until, like, to fill space and time in like every hour. I don't know, like, just as a function of like life now, that without having the internet, can't even go and stream music because I didn't download any of my music because I've been reliant on it to stream. I've got nothing on my hard drives to watch any shows. Same reason. I basically sent my husband, my kids to a furniture store that also has a play space inside it. It's like a very nice play space. It's like super clean that you would pay for, but it's free if you go look at furniture. So I sent them there to go hang out because there was nothing to do really here. I mean, I guess we do board games. We used to have like a big cage in the back so we could like hit golf balls in and do like archery, like soft archery. But then the winds over here basically like took down the cage. So we had to get rid of the cage. But my backyard looks nicer again. But now there's less things to do that are not tech. So like everything, and admittedly, my kids have a lot of tech, but it's also because it keeps the house cleaner because I don't have like toys everywhere. But I didn't realize how much I like always touch my phone and like go to Facebook, go to Instagram, TikTok, Substack, like all the different apps, obviously that I use for the pod, but like I know the internet's down and yet I still like grab my phone and I'm like launching the same things. I'm like, ugh. It's been going on for 9 hours now. 9 hours I've not had any Wi-Fi. And it made me realize like how dangerous it is in our society for us not to have Wi-Fi provided by the government. I think that the government should have Wi-Fi as a national subsidy. I think we're so reliant on Wi-Fi now that if it goes down, emergency services, pay systems, like everything goes down. You know, like it's really, we've become too, it's like a crutch. It's actually even more because I realize, like before, remember, I grew up Gen X, so like I know what it's like to have life without that, and like I could just click into, you know, like go play tennis, go to the park. Let me give you some ideas. But my kids were playing ping pong with my husband in the backyard for a while. But there's still a lot of hours to fill, you know. So then, I mean, I would have to drive down probably like 5 or 6 blocks down the hill, and then we'll have service from my phone. But it also makes me realize, you know, that landlines are kind of still important. When I lived in Japan, I noticed that they still, at the banks, they use all still like handwritten records. So they'll take your deposit and they write it down in a bank record. And it's like, if anything goes down in Japan, they can still switch to manual, analog to get things done. Whereas here in America, I think we're so reliant on tech that like if it goes down, like it's almost as if the power went out, you know, like it's a very interesting kind of situation because it's not like perfectly set up, you know, like stuff goes out all the time for something that we really need. It's like you're breathing and all of a sudden you can't breathe, you know, you can't have it go out that long, you know. And it made me appreciate like why we have payphones, right? Why we have landlines, why we have, I don't know, like encyclopedias, books. You know, if everything went digital and then it goes down and it can just get deleted or get lost, like, you don't want that. But then we also have these libraries. We have seed libraries. We have I guess there was the Alexandria library that got burned down, but in ancient, I want to say Mesopotamia. But is it dangerous? What do you guys think? Do you feel like, God, it's so bad that we rely so much on internet and Wi-Fi and that we don't have it as a right to access anywhere we go at any time? I think we should call our senators. Is it a local politics thing? Is it a federal thing? Is that both? Is it coordinated? It has to be coordinated to a certain extent. I don't really know. Could the states do it without? Yeah. That'd be cool if California was completely Wi-Fi free. Let me start there. If you're Californian, contact the governor's office, or I guess senators would work too. State senators. Well, both, right? Your national elected representatives and your state elected representatives and the governor's office to demand free Wi-Fi. I think California could do it, and that could set the tone for the rest of the country. Because I think if you're visiting from somewhere, you should have access to Wi-Fi if you're traveling and you need directions or need to call. And it should just be a satellite that's covers satellites that would cover the entire country. God, who would run those satellites? Would it be Elon Musk and Starlink? Oh, that'd be so scary though, that he would be in charge of all that. That'd be kind of scary. In this corrupt world right now, that would probably be who would get the contract. Apparently, JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, are losing their guaranteed home at Caltech in Pasadena after, I believe it's 36 years, where they were the sole location. There was no one else that could go for a bid to try to get the Jet Propulsion Lab at their school. But remember, Caltech is also where Oppenheimer discovered the nuclear bomb. Right, so it would be a huge loss for Caltech, a huge loss for Pasadena area. It's weird how there's a brain drain going on. It's weird and it's not weird, right? We know why they're doing it, because if you have intellectuals, they're going to stand up to the people that are trying to propagandize public health and public safety and science, and they need to discredit them. But it's extremely disheartening that the people that might be good at making deals and negotiating are in charge of scientists. So it's to me, it's separation of church and state. You want separation of science and politics, because science is not something that can be debated in the same way, right? Science is truth. So there's, but this is the thing. What consistency can we get from a man who won't even go to his own son's wedding? Now, granted, Don Jr.'s wife wanted to have the wedding at the White House, where Omarosa had it, and I'm kind of surprised that it. Maybe Trump didn't want the drama from it, but he didn't attend. I thought that was really interesting that he would not attend the wedding of his namesake, right? Heir apparent. I think it's kind of weird. Apparently, she used to be in Jeffrey Epstein's circle. She had written a letter on Jeffrey Epstein's behalf. Donald Trump Jr.'s new wife had written a letter of character for Jeffrey Epstein, saying he was basically of the utmost high character. So it's weird that she's marrying Don Jr. I think it's a little bit suspect. It's almost I never really used to think that plants were necessarily real. But then I found out about the Chinese honeypots in Silicon Valley, and then I realized, oh wow, that's really smart, because tech bros, weren't historically probably in their life, like, romantically gifted. So if they become successful in, like, a hot, smart, bilingual Asian woman from China, so Chinese woman specifically, they can play into this idea of fetishization of Asian women, right? If you're in intelligence and you're working, this is the interesting thing about intelligence, spies, clandestine careers, is like being politically correct is not helpful, right? You have to exploit the antithesis of political correctness in people's behavior in order to turn them into an asset. And it's like, that's how I feel about comedy too. Comedy is one of those places where, like the roast of Kevin Hart, for instance, there were definitely like horribly racist and sexist jokes, but because I knew Tony Hinchcliffe was a Trump supporter, I mean, he was on the Trump campaign trails and like talked and like to the extent that he was like put on like podiums for like Trump events. And then Shane McGillis. Anyways, he's not known to be like, he's like a white boy bro, comedian kind of vibe. But I appreciate comedy and the art form of writing jokes that hit, that whether they are politically correct or not, if they make you laugh, then that's the truth in it. And as much as I understand the politically progressive world, and believe me, I speak that language, I also do respect the language of free speech and appreciate the ability to laugh even at something that's inappropriate. Because I think that dark humor is the most effective when you're like grieving. Because when you're grieving, you're like, you feel bad when you laugh. But dark humor cuts through that and allows to break the ice of something that's going through something hard and allows them to laugh. So, because it's so wrong sometimes. It's like, it's just so weird. I've just noticed, these are things that I've noticed when I've gone to funerals over the years, or like, when I interned for the San Diego Police Department, I was interning for one of the detectives who was like the lead detective, and he would talk about how they would make inappropriate jokes all the time at like a murder scene or a crime scene. One of the most like common was like there'd be like a chalk outline and there'd be a deceased person, and they'd be like, I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee, and they're like, yeah, no problem, he's not going anywhere, like stuff like that, and it would be like inappropriate, but it's like to help cope. Taken out of context, if you're like, these police officers were doing this thing, and it's like, yes, it's taken out of context because it's trying to cut through the tension of like the trauma that everybody's like trying to process. Handling the crime scene, handling the case, right? But recently I was like on Facebook, and there was an article about a woman that was a crime scene cleaner. And she said she was like obviously traumatized by it. But it's one of those things where like, how there's people in the military that have to see things all the time. How do they cope? Some of them don't cope, right? I definitely knew people in the Marine Corps that had gone to war, had been hit with IEDs, and like they didn't come back as confident as they had once been. Now they were functional, but they had been shaken by it, right? I had another friend, and then for Memorial Day weekend, it's actually really important to highlight our friend Timothy Cooper, who passed away from his injuries that he had taken on from an IED when he was in Afghanistan. And we served with him while we were in Japan. He got sent there, and I remember he was a Marine, and when he came back, he was rewarded with like a house that was made ADA compliant so that he could take his wheelchair up and down. And I remember we saw him at Bethesda, the VA hospital there, and he had said that he had met Mrs. Obama, Michelle Obama, and he was then honored at the Marine Corps Museum, and I remember just thinking how the nation doesn't get to fully understand the weight of the sacrifice that our military and their families take on. And it's obviously like it's meant to be that way to a certain extent, right? Because in order for society to function, you almost can't have most of society take on the burden of the pain and suffering of that, because it wouldn't be able to function. Which is also why, you know, when you realize all of the war that's going on in the world is so unnecessary, and it's just it's like this need for men to cosplay through a childhood fantasy, especially when they didn't actually like go through boot camp and serve. So I witnessed 9 years of military family service. So like my husband was in the military for 9 years. And so when we got married, we had 2 weddings. First wedding in Vietnam happened on August 18th. And then I think it was like 3 weeks after, it was 9/11. We got back, and then 9/11 happened. So then we were activated after that. And then we went and served in Japan for 3 years. And we're next to Hiroshima. So then we got to feel sort of the intensity of how the Japanese felt about Americans, right? Because it was very compelling and like humbling to be in the city and the suburbs of a town that we had just used. I mean, speaking of Caltech and Pasadena and Oppenheimer, I mean, like used, you know, onto these people and unleashed it. And then I lived there and I got to see the A-bomb memorial dome. That's the only structure that survived the Hiroshima nuclear warhead. And the other weird touch point on that is that my parents used to know the wife of the co-pilot of the plane that dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. So when my parents came to visit, they were like, oh my God, we were literally standing in front of the A-bomb dome, and they're just like, oh my God, we just remembered something that we had completely forgotten until right now. Like, remember your sister's godmother? And I go, yeah, I remember. Her name was Kim, right? She's like, yeah, she was married to this guy, and he had changed his name because he was so ashamed because he was the co-pilot on the plane that dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. I was like, what? And I was sitting going, oh my God, like the weight of like all of that in that moment was crazy, because they're like, do you remember we had a Thanksgiving meal with him? You were really little. And I like flash back to a faint memory when I'm like 4 of sitting at this table with this dude. But it's just like, I don't remember his face or anything. And it's just this weird, like how, you know, the reason I'm in the United States is because of the Vietnam War. My parents escaped Vietnam before the main part of the communist takeover. And then they went to Paris. And then I was born in Paris, France. And then we moved here to America. I was raised in Silicon Valley. Ever since I was 6 months old, I've been an American. And when I think about how war has affected me and how I've experienced the effects of what has happened to a war-torn nation, town, people, how they've healed from it. Like, I've been to Japan. Obviously, I lived in Japan. I got to see how Hiroshima and Yamaguchi Prefecture down to Iwakuni is where we lived on the base at MCS Iwakuni, Japan, which was half Japanese military, National Defense Force, and American military, mostly Marine Corps. I think other, like, pilots, like Navy pilots, would fly through, because the Marine Corps is a department of the Navy. And then also, I think sometimes Air Force. Yeah, Air Force would come through too. So it was a small base, but because it was a collaborative base where we had both sides, sometimes my husband and I would go on the Japanese side and eat their food because it was better. And they'd be like, who are these people? But it was a cool cohabitation, and it was, the most compelling thing was that there was forgiveness. And so, and then when I go to Vietnam and I see the forgiveness that the Vietnamese have to have with not just America, but with France and with China. Okay, like, and then seeing how the development of their economies, both Japan and Vietnam's economies, and how they're actually surpassing our economy in America right now. Especially under this leadership, it's like really easy to pass American excellence right now because, you know, we don't have infrastructure, they're looting everything. So, like, every other country has healthcare, they have bullet trains. Vietnam's they've already approved, like, I want to say, it's like $1 billion project for the bullet trains in Vietnam. And when I think about, you know, Israel and Gaza and how Trump and Jared Kushner were already showing, like, look what we would build. And it was like Trump hotels and stuff on the beach. Like, I'm like, wait, you're going to level this country, go against every, like, war rules of engagement that we've ever had to build a hotel? I was like, what? Like, a hotel? Oh my God. Like, that's so, it's just so basic. Like, you want to destroy things to build a property with your name on it? Like, that, you couldn't come up with a more of like a villain, like, lame archetype story. Like, really? And it's just strange because everything that we are seeing right now is the perversion of every negative, toxic male archetype that has ever been portrayed in film. So you got, like, evil, like, mob vibes, you got dictator vibes, you've got molester vibes, you got, you know, power trip and rape vibes. Then you got other things that you're not even expecting, like just gross, weird, like, you're thinking, did they really think this was cool? Like, to start cannibalizing adrenochrome blood to stay young? Like, I thought it was bad enough that women were putting, like, sperm on their face and, like, bird poop on their face to stay young. I was like, sunblock will do you great. Like, really? Drink water and put sunblock on, ladies. Like, you don't need to put poop on your face and, like, salmon sperm on your face, right? And yet, we have just the perversion of needing to do things so that you can feel power and to enjoy, like, inflicting pain on people, but then using, like, the innocent, like, children and stuff like that, because they can't really fight back. It's just the most cowardly behavior. I just don't understand how, unless there is a mechanism realistically inside both parties that is working to suppress any like real outrage and any change that can occur to hold people accountable. But I just don't, I'm so frustrated by Democratic leadership then, because now I feel like moving forward, I want to slash and burn progressive agenda and just be like, if any Republican ever says anything about radical legislation from the bench, we're not being fair, we're not like whatever, I'm just gonna be like, dude, Trump administration, are you kidding? Like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it at all. And you know, it's just, we've come to a point where they're going to push us to the point of revolution, I think, because people will not be able to afford to eat. Once people can't feed their children and they can't feed themselves, there is nothing that gets a rabid dog more angry and more ready to fight than starvation. And I think all the reports of people having to choose between paying rent or eating, like, you don't understand. Americans have a fighting spirit. We're not going to let it get to that level, but we have to like tap in and recognize, you know, how quickly. I mean, the fact that there was another assassination attempt over the weekend at the White House, actually on the day that Trump should have gone to Don Jr.'s wedding, there was an assassination attempt by a 21-year-old. He was shot by the Secret Service, and you know, some people are thinking that it's a way to distract. I guess they're making a deal with Iran, possibly, just to distract from that. You know, it's the thing that hits me the most in the situation about all these assassination attempts on Donald Trump is how little empathy and care and concern for him that the nation has when it happens. Like, nobody seems to really care. And it's maybe because we don't believe that they're real, because his ear doesn't have any holes in it, or because we don't care about him as a person anymore. And we just like, he's a horrible person. It's just a reality. But do you know how corrupt the system has to be to maintain power for such a horrible person that is so blatantly corrupt and doing heinous stuff? How much power is in play helping? Like, it's enough to make a person want to leave the country and never even like participate anymore in anything American, honestly. Like, I would love to leave and move. If they are like, leave the country, I would love to be deported to Vietnam or to Paris, where I was born. Because honestly, I would get health care, I'd have better food, and I wouldn't have a maniac leading and destroying the reputation of my beloved country and everything that I have believed in my entire life, and even like watched friends like die for. So tell me what you think. I mean, I covered a lot, I'm not gonna lie, but give me some feedback. Hello to subscribers on YouTube. Welcome. I've been getting some new subscribers, and it's very nice to see. So, until next time, bye.